What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So Marvel Rivals is finally out and free to play here, and I wanted to test it out on the Steam Deck and see what performance was like. And of course, this game, if you're not already familiar, is basically Marvel Overwatch. It's very similar, and I've been playing quite a few rounds here, checking it out since it came out a couple hours ago at the time of making this video, and I want to get in and cover it. And so let's go ahead and get in and take a look at it. Now, I am aware there are some people that are launching into this game and they're not able to get past the black screen, be it at the launch or the login or the shaders. And I didn't have this issue. I was able to go through here and click and get past the notices that come up about drivers and the OS, click launch, it would launch into the game. I'm going to speed past some of the black screen stuff here, but it loads in after about 25 seconds there for me. Then it compiles into the shaders, and then after about 5 seconds, right into this warning, please review section where it loads in, and then right into the title screen. There was no cut there in that. So I haven't had any problem with it, but I'm aware some people are having issues, so be aware of that. We are going to be at 800p, and I've messed with TSR and FSR and XeSS. I'm just going to use FSR mostly for the video, but you can really use any of those. Balanced performance is going to be the way to go, and we'll take a look at both of those here as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn off frame generation for now, but we will take a look at that in the game too, because it actually is working pretty decently in this game, which I was kind of surprised. And we're going to be on the low preset, but we'll also take a look at medium. However, I will say the game is a little tough to run here. We're not able to get really high FPS. I'd really like to be at like 60, which isn't going to happen without frame generation, so I'm not really wanting to tick too many settings up. I think something between low and medium is going to work out just fine. No reason to really crank things up in a PvP game like this where we're going to want more frames. But this is the performance when we're looking at the 800p low preset FSR balance, and I have 4 gigabytes of VRAM set in my BIOS. And you can see here when you get to some busier areas, we are coming down to that 30-32 FPS, even lower sometimes, like when I'm making portals form and we're loading into different areas quickly, we'll go into the 20s even at these settings. If you're in combat trying to do that, that can get a little bit tricky. All in all though, I mean, it feels pretty smooth and there's no stutters or frame time issues. It's just usually GPU bound. Sometimes the CPU will take a hit and you'll see a dip into 99%, and in the frames it happens, but for the most part we are GPU bound. That's what really is making that happen. But yeah, it's pretty smooth for the most part with all that. Now we're on performance FSR here, and it does help. Of course, we're on a different map, and depending on where you're at, of course, will depend on your performance. But on here with performance, we do get a little bit better FPS and performance out of it with FSR that way. But of course, your image quality will take a bit more of a hit as well, especially in the finer details. But honestly, it didn't look too bad here on the Steam Deck. And if we go in and change it to the medium preset, we're instantly going to come down to much lower FPS on this same map. And when we get into combat, we're going to come down into the 20s, and really not worth it for me. Again, that's why I say you might tick a couple of things up to medium, but for the most part, I'm just going to stick with low and using FSR or TSR or XeSS and maybe even frame gen, which we'll be talking about as well. But it's just tough enough to run, and I'm really wanting to keep the frames up on that. But again, at least it's smooth though. There's no stutters or frame time issues or anything like that, and whether I'm 30, 40, 50 FPS, it feels fine. In combat, I need to adjust my settings a bit, my sensitivity, get the moves down, find the characters I like, but ultimately decent enough here. And back to the low preset FSR balance, just to kind of check it out here. You can see we're not coming down to that 29 FPS. We're staying at a lot better performance here for that. So I think you get the idea here of what we're looking at. Now when it comes to frame generation, we're going to go ahead and turn that on here, and we're going to leave FSR alone. We're going to leave the low preset alone because I do want to keep the base FPS up. The higher we have that, the better off for frame generation. But getting in here, we will get much higher FPS, and unlike some titles, it actually does work pretty decent here. I do recommend the manual GPU clock of 1400, 1500, or 1600 here to keep the frame generation working properly. Unlike other games, it's not necessarily breaking it. The CPU seems to do okay still, at least in the rounds I've tried this. So the 1600 worked well, and it's going to give us a lot more FPS. And surprisingly, the input lag is not bad here, and the ghosting isn't really bad or anything like that, or like frame loss where you'll get those stutters. It's actually a pretty smooth experience with in-game frame generation. So I was kind of surprised, and I think this might be a way that you might want to give it a shot here on the Steam Deck, whether you're using FSR Performance or Balanced or other things for that there. I think it actually works out pretty well. So even though frame gen has been hit or miss with titles on the Steam Deck, so far it looks pretty good and feels pretty good here for this one. But anyways, guys, I think you get the idea here of how Marvel Rivals is running on the Steam Deck and what you might want to do with your settings, and check out the game there. Not super high FPS, but does work out pretty well. Alright guys, thanks a lot for coming and check out the video as always. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.